there's a difference between a strategy that is new that you should be using in your business versus just a shiny object, right? And I think a lot of people have difficulty when looking at something determining whether it's one or the other, but it's kind of critical because the times when my business has grown the most or the businesses that I've interacted with is oftentimes with a breakthrough.
Boom, 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 boom.
What's up, everybody? You're listening to the Hustle and Flowchart podcast with your boys, Matt Wolf and Joe Fier. Check it.
What is happening?
Welcome back.
We're back. We're back with a friend of ours and a mentor of ours. This is one of the very first guys that we followed online, like in internet marketing, when we first were getting the momentum started.
Yeah, well, his Internet Marketing Manifesto ebook was like one of the very, very, very earliest ebooks I read, which in retrospect might have been a little bit more technical than my abilities at the time.
Definitely for me.
Yeah. But it was a big entry point. And Rich Schefren, who is our guest today, which I don't think we've named him yet, he is known as the guru to the gurus, and I've only ever known him as the guru to the gurus, and so that's how we've always looked at him. So it's a great honor to get to chat with him and rub elbows with him these days.
It is, and it's we've had him on the show a couple times before this, so you probably have seen his name pass through the podcast, but this one it's kind of an off the cuff chat. Yeah. And we really dive deep into some of the latest stuff he's up to, the model that he has a whole membership site that's similar to the model that we have, but you'll hear his perspective and what he's doing. It's interesting. He's very open with what he's how he thinks about everything there. Yeah. And some of the other cool stuff he's up to. With Jay Abraham, he's doing something interesting. That's towards the end of the episode. I'll just kind of leave that there for you. But you're going to get a lot from this one. He's just a brilliant strategic thinker, and you should follow what he's doing. The best way to do that is at strategicprofits.com, and I highly suggest you join one or two of those things. Join his Facebook group for one, but also Steal Our Winners is absolutely phenomenal. Yeah, and we've been in there featured a couple times. About to record another time. It's awesome. So
this episode, it's a very wide ranging conversation that's going to take you from his dealings with Agora, his membership site, Clubhouse, writing a book, just all over the place. Just this is the conversation we'd have with Rich if we were sitting down at a bar with him, just catching up and finding out what he's up to. So you're going to love this one. Before we jump over, I just want to remind you, our Pod Hacker course should be live right now. We are opening it and closing it, and I believe it's in an open window right now. So if you go to podhacker.com, you can learn the new way of using a podcast to build a tribe, grow your business, and create multiple streams of income by simply copying our plug and play PodHacker system.
Boom. That's podhacker.com.
So
you're going to like it. And also, just really quick before we dig into the episode, get the action guides to this episode here as well, because it is wide ranging, but there are some nuggets you don't want to miss, some gold. So if you go to
some rich nuggets,
they are. And definitely, he signed off on that. I'm sure. If you go, you can go to PodHacker too. But in this case, for these notes, go to flowchartgroup.com and plug in your email address. Within 2 weeks of this episode going live, you will get them for free at flowchartgroup.com.
Yes.
That is all.
Let's go talk to Rich.
All right, we're rolling. Rich, it's time. What is it, episode number 3? You've been with us now, huh?
Awesome.
Number 3, yeah. I kind of blanked out. I'm like, we had you and Jay together when we were talking about Master of Passive Income. And that was kind of a unique session. Wasn't really a lot of talking with you. It was more Jay forward that time.
Yes.
And then what? Prior to that, we were chatting all about the crazy big tech leading up to the launch of this wild 24-hour live stream that you did in Florida. Yeah. Was it the
last big event of 2020?
Dude, crazy. Yeah. I'm like, I recognize this backyard. So you're sitting in your backyard. It looks freaking amazing. Smoking a cigar. Hell yeah.
Enjoying life.
Well, man, I mean, we've been going back and forth a lot since that last launch that you had of Steal Our Winners. And I mean, just thanks for having us out there. I just want to give you gratitude here publicly, because it was opened our eyes to, well, Florida, because Matt's never been to Florida, at least that part of it.
Well, I'd only ever been to Orlando other than that.
It's always Orlando. It's like, you took us to a beautiful place.
Yeah.
But just the fact, the way you ran that live stream and launch, and you made it an event for the participants, but also outside of the event, I thought was super unique. And you just had a killer team. So thanks for that. And I hope other people.
Well, my pleasure. And we'll be doing it again this year. We just got to lock down dates, so
cool,
we'll figure it out soon.
Can't wait. Is that going to be another Steal Our Winners type thing on the back end of that?
Yeah, totally. And, so many people, like guests who were on, told me that they got a lot of business done, like being there. So because of that, especially, I want to do it again, just so that like we kind of create an event where a lot of people can get together and do business, because there's really not very many of those anymore. No. Like there used to be a long time ago, like big seminar, right? Like and then traffic and conversion, and maybe like traffic and conversion will be back in action where everyone will be at. But if I feel like if I can get mine like a couple months before that,
do it.
We should probably have a good show up, right? So so that, and the idea was to do it next weekend, but originally it was going to be Funnel Hacker Live, so we didn't do it for next weekend because I turned 50 next weekend. And so what I wanted to do was do a 50-hour live stream and end the live stream on at 12:01 on my birthday. So, right. Like, but yeah, it's not going to happen now. I'll have to wait till I'm 60.
I don't know
and do a 60-hour one.
You would too, because I remember after 24 hours, you were lit. I think you stayed up another, while longer.
You somehow had more energy as the thing went on than less. I feel like you actually, the energy ramped up as it got deeper.
Yeah, it's hard when you pull all-nighters and stuff, at least for me. Like I always get a second wind. And then we had the mastermind the day of, right? Like then started the live stream that night, then went 24 hours. So I was up for like 48 hours by the time we finished, because then we all went out for dinner and I was wide awake at dinner. And then like after that, you have adrenaline running, about like the last 36 hours. So even then it's like, it takes a little while to kind of wind down.
Yeah. I probably slept for a week after that.
I'm curious about the sort of behind the scenes of that event. I mean, you guys managed to get pretty much like the who's who in the sort of digital marketing world out there. Like what went into getting those people out there? Was it sort of herding cats to get that group of people out there, or was it easier than you anticipated? Just kind of curious.
No, yeah, it was much easier than I anticipated. For the most part, there were a few people who were really difficult. Won't mention their names, but there were a few people that were really difficult. But most people were really easy, and I would say that the bummer of the event was that. Like I had done a 24-hour live stream back in 2008 with no guests, just me at my desk for 26 hours, actually, because at the 24-hour mark, I was like, if we can get X number of people on, I'll keep going, right? And then I did that again. So it was 26 hours. And then I just pulled the plug after 26 hours because we were starting to experience some technical difficulties. And after 26 hours, you have a little less patience. So I was like, I don't want to lose my temper on air. So I would have done like a Bill O'Reilly,
don't do that.
Go on. So we had about like 30,000 people when I did it myself in 2008. And we got 30,000 because we made a big deal about it. And so the intention with the live stream that you guys were on was for this to be like epic, like huge. And then we had problems with Agora's affiliate program, right? So pretty much I didn't really ask anyone to promote after I saw how bad it was. We didn't run any media for it. And we had challenges with legal all the way through, which made no sense because we made no claims. Like we didn't say that you would make an extra $1 if you showed up on the live stream. So there really shouldn't have been any legal problems. They were giving me a lot of grief about I'd say something about Google, but anything I said about Google was in the New York Times or in the Wall Street Journal. I wasn't making stuff up, right? But when legal had a problem, we'd have to redo the video, and then we'd redo the video, and then they'd have another problem with something that was already in the video before that they could have told us about. So we ended up having about the same amount of people on the live stream, about 30,000 in total. which to me was like incredibly disappointing because like I had done that on my own. And so that was like the beginning of me having some issue with the way like I felt like Agora was managing the business, because like I've been consulting to Agora for like 15 years, right? So when I sold half my business, I then started making less than I've ever made in the last 20 years because I was still getting paid as a consultant to Agora, but now they were running my business and they weren't doing it very well. Yeah. So even when my business was being not run, like just it was making me money. And like now I had sold half of it to Agora and now they were running it and like losing money because they had spent all the money like, you know, to make the live stream good, but then spent no money or any resources on actually getting traffic, right? And it's a little bit frightening, right? When you have a partner that has very deep pockets who also spends money only on the things that don't bring in money, because then it's like your partner's like, hey, we lost a couple $100,000 on that. Your share is X. And I'm like, shit. What? Like, you know, like, So I bought the business back, we've been I still am a consultant to Agora, so I'm just a consultant, not a partner, but we bought it back, like, I think as of like September or so of last year, but like the transition took several months. So we're finally like, as of like last month, I'd say like kind of masters of our own destiny, which is kind of nice.
Yeah. Well, you still have the Daily Insider secrets. And I remember, I think you missed, I don't know, maybe there's like a gap of 2 days or something like that in that transition. And I think that's what triggered me. I was like, wait, something's different here. And this email looks similar, but slightly different.
Well, that's how you know you're doing something right with email, right? Is if somebody takes notice, like, wait a second, I haven't received an email in 2 days from this person.
Yeah. Well, and you know, like at Agora, their systems are so antiquated that like to send an email, you need someone to do HTML hard coding for every email. Like there are email senders. That's all they do for a job at Agora, right? Wow. Obviously, with our 4 people right now at Strategic Profits, we cannot afford one of them to be a full-time email sender. That would kind of like
no marketer typically should.
Yeah. So we've got to have more of a templated approach, I guess.
Yeah, man. Well, what are some big moves that you're doing? So you seem a lot leaner now, you know, at Strategic Profits, your company. You brought back Steeler winners. So the model that's a recurring product, right? Is it?
Well, you know, when I originally launched it, so, you know, I think we've talked about this, but, you know, Agora has gotten to almost close to the $2 billion in sales, primarily by having a newsletter as the front end, and then, you know, $2,000 to $5,000 backends. And then all the newsletters are sold by premium, right? Like when you advertise a newsletter, you can't really advertise what's coming because you don't know what's coming. So, but you still want people to want to buy right now. So the only way that you can really do that is to have something that satisfies immediate gratification and also something that's relevant and timely to the current moment. So that's why, like at Agora, like most newsletters are sold by premium and, you know, a bonus. And so the first half of the sales letter is all about this premium that you get for free. And then when you subscribe to whatever, right? So my goal at Agora with Strategic Profits was to build it into a $100 million business. And at Agora, for a financial business, give or take, like 100,000 subscribers will support a $60 million business. So 100,000 paid subscribers of a newsletter that is $49 a year will kick off about 60 million, like in back end sales and everything else. And so my thought was, because the lifetime value is higher in internet marketing than it is in financial, that if we got 100,000 subscribers, we would have a $100 million business. And then it was like, okay, well, if we're going to have a $100 million business, we'll probably need a few gurus, not more than one, right? And so what kind of front end product could support multiple gurus and also spin off premiums left and right? That's part of like the concept of Steal Our Winners, like that was built into it from the get-go. I don't have the same aspirations to build Strategic Profits into a $100 million business if I'm doing it with my own money. Because at Agora, like, you know, they don't mind going 6 months negative. So to sell a $50 a year newsletter, like even if it costs $200 to make that sale or $250 to make that sale, that's okay. But if I'm selling 10,000 a month at $50 a year and it costs me $250, then I'm losing $200 a sale, which means I'm losing $2 million a month in cash until the 6 month mark, right? And so Agora, you can do that all day long at Agora as long as the stats check out because they have very deep pockets. But I do not have pockets that deep.
Agora pockets.
Yeah, my arms are a lot shorter, so I can't reach all the way deep into my pocket.
That's right.
And,
I love that. Don't be
maybe
T-Rex.
It's because I'm Jewish. Yeah, it's a Jew in me. So I made it $50 a month. Right. Because now our goal is not to have 100,000 subscribers at $50 a year. It's to have potentially 10,000 subscribers at $50 a month. And so a lot of changes as it relates to that. And then it's a lot more about how do we make the experience as fantastic as we can in every way. And I think we have a long way to go there. I would say that we're delivering really great stuff, but the way it's delivered, it could be a lot better. And so we're working on a lot of stuff like that.
It's gotten a lot better since the first iteration. I know it moved to a whole new members area. And I mean, we have some pretty baller membership folks listening. There's one guy in particular, Chris, who he knows who he is. He might be able to help you out if you need some help on that front too. So
yeah, would love to talk to anyone that is. I mean, what we're talking about right now is developing a challenge a month for members. So there'd be a challenge each month. We would take that challenge and sell it externally as well as a way of acquiring new customers. And then also creating these packets or marketing stacks or whatever you want to call them, where we basically start packaging different segments based on the outcome. So we've done 9 different Steal Our Winner segments on improving webinar performance. And, from everything from Dave D giving the ideal structure for how you should do the presentation, to Onyx and Gal, figuring out a way to reduce the cost per registration and increase the show up rate at the same time. Plus a bunch of other people like Felicia Pagesh, who talked about how to repurpose the webinar into a bunch of different other things that drive traffic to the webinar. So we did 9 different segments related to webinars. So I want to package those as just all the secrets to improving your webinar, or another one being how to get your first ad working in Facebook and YouTube. Another one on how to increase cart value, right? And basically have these packages that we offer as premium when when someone buys, because at this point now we've been doing it for a year. So we have about 110 or so Steal Our Winners segments in total. So, there's a lot that we can repackage and create. And that's where we want to go with a bunch of it.
Yeah. So it'd be kind of so this is something that I saw James Wedmore was doing a few years back that I thought was sort of smart. He would bundle stuff like that, and he would go and say, okay, do you want this webinar bundle? It's $99, or join our membership at $49 a month and you'll get the bundle. So doing that kind of thing is sort of what you had in mind.
Yeah. That and leveraging the fact that the one on webinars, right, is got if there's 9, 7 of the people, let's say, are highly recognizable, gurus in their own right. They're all contributing to this and sharing their secrets as it relates to just that issue, right? Yeah. So I think, that's kind of the idea there. And we could be repurposing them in many different ways. And then I'm talking to Felicia Pagesh right now because she might end up doing the challenges internally as well as externally, and then potentially also create courses where she fills in any missing pieces, but using the interviews as well in that way, so that we just start repurposing this in as many ways as possible. And also figuring out ways where when we do a challenge based on a contributor, that we are also feeding that contributor all the leads so that they can sell them other stuff. Because our goal is just to get people into Steal Our Winners, right? Like, and if someone shared a tactic with us that we're going to use as a challenge, it's only fair that they benefit, right? Like, you know, so like the goal is, you know, with everything that we do, the goal is to get great stuff for our subscribers, to make it insanely worthwhile for the contributor, which I feel like we can do a lot more there, right? And
You
then
do
make
a lot
it
already,
beneficial for our business.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the goal is just to make it so that people like are like, you know, jump at the opportunity, right?
Yeah.
And the thing that we have that we're most excited about right now, I'd say, like in our promotion stuff, is the deal that we signed with Groove, which is, you know, the Steal Our Winners Groove Edition that's launching this month. And that will probably add about 10,000 or so subscribers, which is like another 10,000 marketers that, you know, next time you guys are on, you'll be exposed to that, you know, I didn't have access to before. So
you're doing like integration marketing in that kind of way. That's awesome. That's
So it's going into the Groove funnel, which has a couple thousand people going through it every day as a $1 trial. And I'm in conversation right now with the guys from Build, Grow, and Scale about possibly doing a Steal Our Winners e-commerce, just, you know, solely e-commerce version, which, you know, I wouldn't do on my own because I just don't feel like I have enough of a knowledge of that. A lot more people, a lot more knowledgeable than I am about e-commerce. So I'd want to do it with a partner that is e-commerce like heavy, right? So that's at least the thought there. But it's so great to be able to leverage other people's distribution channels and provide them with something like, you know, with Groove, we're giving them a whole new profit center, right? Like, you know, and it would be the same with Build, Grow, and Scale. So yeah, there's a lot of stuff between, you know, trying to get a female guru to really be more the face of Steal Our Winners, like external, because for whatever reason, I seem to repulse women when it comes to selling content, at least. And I think that would probably be helpful. I've been told that everything I like is highly masculine, like the colors for Steel, like for the CSIB, which was red, yellow, and black, right? Like, yeah, I don't know. I like those colors, but apparently, like when women look at it, they tell me this screams male so much, and I'm like, wow. I didn't know that.
It's really helpful to have someone looking out for you. Like we have, there's a loyal listener and customer of ours, Lisa Beyer. She's big in actually she's in your neck of the woods out in Florida. So she could probably assist you, but she's always looking out. She's like, okay, you've had a lot of males on the podcast, or your lineup of like the top 10 from 2020 wasn't a single woman, which is totally true. So she's helping us out on that front to give us more women. She's like, hey, how about this idea to, you know, highlight women in this way for, you know, what was it, International Women's Day on March 8th. So we're doing something there.
Oh, that's cool. Yeah. I mean, it's a shame, right? Like it's a shame, or at least I feel it's a shame. Like hopefully someday it's not like this, but like even when I did the live stream, like I had to work really hard to get like 4 women or 5 women. Like it just, and it wasn't like I was trying to get men. Like it was just like, okay, like who are the leaders? Let's like go after them. And you know, like I had Kim Walsh Phillips, I had Katrina Ruth, I had Felicia, I had Molly Mahoney, and I'm probably forgetting one other woman that, but like there weren't that many, like, you know, and but it wasn't from a lack of trying.
Yeah, no, and that's the same on our side. It's pretty much exactly the same as what you said. It's just, I don't know. It's just the way. I hope it doesn't stay that way. And yeah. Luckily, you know, you have Felicia here. That sounds like. Hopefully, I'm happy that that's coming around too. Because I remember we were chatting about this concept of doing a challenge, and having someone else that's not you, I think, is really cool. For one, because it elevates your brand. It seems like, and then the challenge model. Talk into that model a little bit more, because I think that's. It's something that we're toying around with as well, where you have a public challenge, but also this internal challenge, and it's kind of serves as this lead in. You know, you're giving away amazing content paid on the front, but really the whole idea is to bring them in to Steal Our Winners, because we have a very similar model. That's why, and I think a lot of people listening have a membership site, but using this kind of method is just giving value to both sides, and it's kind of a no-brainer way into the door.
I'm always looking to maximize the amount of leverage I get from whatever it is I do, because I'm lazy and I don't want to do that much. So I want to figure out like how I can, if I clean the dishes, I want everyone in the house to know that I clean the dishes, so that next time,
me too.
Everyone, the dishes are cleaned.
My job here is done.
Cleaned every day. Yes, but I did the dishes today, so I just want everyone to know that for the next 2 days.
You leave one dish dirty. This is the trick. You leave one dish dirty until somebody else walks in the room, and then you clean that final dish when they walk in the room.
That's right. I like it.
Good idea. Maybe I should just always have the dirty dish, and then when someone else cleans it, like just whip it out and be like, "Oh, I just cleaned it." Work. So with even with the the individual segments like of CLR winners, like the goal behind that is that like ultimately when we get our shit together a little bit more, like we can pivot on a moment's notice. I do a good interview, I can immediately turn that into a premium front end like offer, right? Yeah. And the whole idea being is like that what we're delivering to our clients, our subscribers, can be the same thing that we're using to attract as bait, right? Like new buyers, exactly. Right? Yeah. So we're not like having to create our premiums like at Agora. They're creating premiums outside of like the newsletter to do that, whereas ours are self-generated. And it's like, so as I'm looking at the clients and our subscribers, right? Like I'm always thinking about like, what else can I do for them that because I'm doing it, then opens up something else that I'd like to do, right? So engagement is important to me, and wanting my, the clients to be engaged with the content, feel like every month there's stuff that they're getting that can really move their business forward. And my thought is that a challenge would be a great way to get a bunch, there's really, I kind of like look at it as 3 groups, and then there's a middle group that I'm not really sure yet what to do with. But like, the way I'm looking at it is someone logs in to steal our winners. If they've got a like significant business going already, but they're a marketer, they're not going to really want to learn the techniques or anything like that. They're probably going to want to outsource it or give it to a team member. So for them, like, we've talked about this, I think, like where I want to go. I reached out to Marketer Hire. I haven't heard back yet, but my goal is to work with some company that can take the strategies that are appropriate each month and actually outsource it and then report back to us like the results, and then make whoever did it for us available to other people, so that like it almost becomes like a buffet. Like you log in, you see the different tactics, you see which ones are working really well. You're like, oh, I'd like to have that tactic by the same person that did it for us. Like, so my hope is that like for that group, we eventually move to that level, right? Where each month we're reporting back on what was given to us the prior month and the results that caused. Yeah. Also, starting, I think this month for last month's material, I'm doing a monthly call with Jay Abraham, where for Jay, he wants to stay up to date with what's happening in online marketing, like what are the coolest strategies and tactics. So he wants to talk about like what's in Scale Our Winners. And for me, it's a chance to share these with Jay, who's my mentor. So I want him to be as informed as possible. But 2, like that will spin other ideas in his head. Like, oh, you could take that and do this with it or that with it. So it's a way of like expanding value. I think like the top level people would probably be interested in that as well.
Definitely.
At the very bottom, like the people, and I don't, I'm just talking about not where they rank as a human, but just in the evolution of their business. At the very bottom, right? The people that are still like doing it all themselves. For them, I think the challenge would be great, because now they're not having to do they can, every month there'll be something from the content that they can do with other people and have their hand held and do it like, in a way where they bond with other people and get an outcome. And so the challenges are really useful for that. So if we do the challenges really for them, right? Because I don't see someone who's running like an 8-figure business, like blocking out a week so they can be involved in the challenge. Yeah. So this is more for the new people, but if we're going to do a challenge for internal, then we might as well do it external. And, the very first time I saw a model like this was probably, I don't know, like 13 to 15 years ago by a company that's still in business, Marketing Profs. And Marketing Profs used to have like, they would sell these like webinars with subject matter experts, like true subject matter experts. Like if, they might have one on increasing your conversions on a webinar, but then it would be someone like a Jason Fladline. I mean, not back then, but it would be someone that really knew their stuff, or, it was lots of like very drilled down type stuff. And you could buy, and now I think I'm going to make up numbers because I don't really remember what it was, but let's say you could buy, it's like, let's say it was like a 3-hour webinar or something. So it was in depth, and you could buy it for like either 99 or 197 or something like that. And they did 2 of them a month, but they're all free, plus the entire backlog of all the ones they've done in the past. Like if you subscribe for $300 a year. So like you can buy that one for 197, or you can sign up right now for 300, get that one for 197 for free, plus the whole next 52 weeks, plus all the ones from like last year and the year before and the year before. Yeah. So like, it kind of was a clever way of getting people into the membership, right? Because they were doing those webinars for the members, right? So it's the same thing here. And the only thing I would add is that, the very first time that I really understood challenges was probably like in March, I think, of last year, right? Because whenever I did the interview with Michelle Schefren, she like was the first one to really kind of like lay out challenges for me and everything that was working. So where the world is today with challenges, like a lot of people are doing them, et cetera, right? But it would be a mistake for most marketers, because I think some marketers will make this mistake. They'll say, oh, that's kind of played out.
Right.
And it's like, no, that is not played out. Like when I first was thinking about doing a launch, a very well-known guru, who I don't want to mention his name because he would be mad if I did. I was telling him like I was thinking about doing a launch. And he's like, oh, man, that's so played out already. And the only 2 people who had done launches at that point, like other than Walker, was Reese and Mike Filsaime. Yeah. So this is like early 2006, like January of 2006. And this person was telling me like, oh, yeah, it's passed. And like I wouldn't be here today if I hadn't done that launch. So, just because a lot of people are doing it doesn't mean that like a marketer shouldn't really explore it. And at least the way I've seen it done, and I haven't really participated in many challenges myself, but I've seen like, as I've been a guest to Kim Walsh Phillips, primarily those, and the amount of hand holding she does during those is quite extensive. Yeah. And I was talking to Molly Mahoney last night about the same thing. And she was saying how like, yeah, you're not doing anything else when you're doing those challenges. Like you're all hands on deck, right?
Like we chat with Roland pretty often, Fraser, and he's doing a challenge basically a month. And I know he's blocking off a week or 2, but there's a reason why he keeps doing them. They're working.
Like during that week where he's running it, he's not responding to text messages. He's all in.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, in one Steal Our Winners, Scott Oldford did a segment on the back end of a challenge.
Yep.
And so he did this challenge where I think he charged $97. Didn't get that many people in it. Maybe got like 400 or 500 people, like something like that. I mean, for Scott, that's not that much.
Sure.
And maybe he spent like half that money or 3/4 of that money on the advertising to get those people in. Maybe it was even less. Maybe it was like 200 or 300. But part of the offer was that during the challenge, that if you fill out this application, Scott will review it personally and text you back what he thought your next step should be. Like whether it's with Scott or with someone else, right? But he would personally text you back and tell you what he thought your best steps were.
Wow.
And that worked so effectively that on that small group in the challenge, like he brought back well over $1 million, like in back end sales from it. And a client, a Steal Our Winners subscriber, I don't know her well. I just know her first name is Mia. She used that strategy and then she posted to Facebook, like, made an extra 100 and some odd $1,000 like from that one strategy. And I was like, hot damn. Yeah, we should be doing some of these. And and I'm so like, yeah, that would be awesome. Cause if we can do something like that, where like we're doing it to the external, so we're getting new subscribers to Steal Our Winners. And then if we're using like a tactic like that you gave us, right? Like then we would want to sell your back end like out of that challenge.
Mm-hmm.
And it would be great to sell a couple $100,000 of a contributor's back end.
Oh,
Like
yeah.
that would certainly be something that would make people want to contribute like as quickly,
All
you know?
the time, yeah.
Yeah. So, yeah. So, you know, it's like I always try in anything I'm doing to try and make it as much a win-win-win-win-win because because I'm lazy, I know that if I can make it a win-win-win, like then other people are going to be willing to lend some support to get some stuff done because they have an outcome that's beneficial. Like I find that not very many people are excited about me making a lot more money, except me and Kim and my kids.
Yeah.
But other people can be enrolled in them making more money.
Of course.
So yeah.
I mean, ever since we got to know you, which was last year, or it was 2 years? 2019. It was the end of 2019 is when Mars hooked us up, basically got you on a lot of podcasts, and that kind of, spun into now. But yeah, ever since then, we've kept in touch. I mean, you've helped us tremendously, and, we were just pulled to help you in anything that you're doing. And something I actually want to talk about, because this is kind of leads into the model, are your live streams. Because for a while we were talking about podcasts for you on the back end of Steal Our Winners, but now you went hot and heavy on live streams every week, and you have that thing freaking dialed in, man. So it's basically kind of like a podcast. But I'd love to hear.
It's kind of like a podcast. I wish I had more guests. Like I haven't really tried to get guests, and I think like I wish I could just turn it on and just do it, as opposed to like thinking of a clever topic, having something to say about that. Especially when there's no other person, like, it's you for 2 hours. Like, geez, like, can I even, what am I going to do after I spend 10 minutes, when it takes only 10 minutes to say everything I know about this thing? What am I going to do the next hour and 50 minutes? Mm-hmm. So that's kind of, that's the only problem with trying to get too much leverage out of stuff. Like right now, what we're doing is I'm doing the last 10 minutes of the live stream. I'm recording a YouTube video based on what I just covered in the live stream. And so what's cool is that the people watching enjoy it because they get to see me nervous and like stumbling over myself, concerned, like having to psych myself up to do this YouTube video, which, they don't expect that. We just tend to think, I guess, when we see other people do stuff, that it's not as difficult for them as it is for us. And so them getting to see that it's just as difficult for me to record a YouTube video as it is for them, kind of like, I think increases the bonding. And then fortunately, we've been hooked up with some really good people for YouTube. So we started, like, I think this will be the 4th video or maybe the 5th, I don't know. But like we're ranked number 1 or 2 for how to get new customers. Like as a search phrase in YouTube, we're ranked number 1 for digital marketing strategies. I think we're ranked number 3 or 4 for how to start an online business and something else. And so I got to figure out, like, I think tonight I do another live stream and it's on how to scale your business. And so I'm going to have to figure out what the hell I'm going to talk about on YouTube, because, it's like one thing to do a live stream. People like get to know you like they're not, versus someone like stumbles across your video. You've got a lot less time to get to the goods before they decide like this is a waste of my time.
Yeah.
How does the live stream stuff fit into the like bigger picture of your business? So it's obviously feeding the YouTube channel. Are you pushing people over to Steal Our Winners at the end of the live streams? Like what's the sort of, how does it fit?
Yeah. Well, when I start the live stream, I play the docuseries promo. Mm-hmm. Like there's a 10-second countdown now. And then as soon as that 10-second countdown goes, it goes into the promo for 2 minutes. Then it cuts to me. Right. Mm-hmm. So I'm advertising that every time. I actually, in the last video I shot for YouTube, they told me to make it 10 minutes long. So I made it 8 minutes long and then ended with that promo. And that's gotten us quite a bit of traffic. So that's kind of nice. Right now, it's kind of a waste of time, I would say. Like, if I'm being all honest, like other than like building out an audience and being more familiar, like, but if that was the only reason to do it, I would say like, yeah, it's not the best use of my time, but I do want to have a bigger presence on YouTube. So that's important to me. And I want to start putting out a lot more content in other places. Part of that is through live streaming. Like right now, we just loaded up our first video to LinkedIn. We're like loading up a few videos and then I'm going to apply for LinkedIn Live.
I was going to ask
so
about
that. Then, right, like right now I'm broadcasting live to YouTube and Facebook. but I'd love to be doing it YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn. Maybe even Twitch. Who knows?
We'll see you on TikTok pretty soon here.
Actually, I'm doing some tests on TikTok right now, but I'm doing it in China.
Okay.
Just in case it all goes sideways.
Smart.
So but Mars of Mars and Michelle. Not that there's anyone else named Mars, but he just started working with my assistant to help me find a video editor, and ideally a video editor that's like somewhere close to me, so that they can come over also and like we can record stuff. Because really, I would spend more time preparing for the live streams, which would then make the live streams better if like I had a video editor who was coming in behind me, like finding of the 4 hours I did last week, like the 10 minutes where I sounded really smart, to like edit down so that then we can use those videos as content in a lot of different places. So I'd say that we're like a few weeks away from that, but I want to do so much more video, but I want the end result to be much more polished than me during the live stream. I say like too much, I say too much, and I
see, this
like
is
all
the beauty.
that.
This is the beauty of live streaming, though, and I know just for people starting a podcast, it's a big hang up for a lot of folks is trying to be perfect on the mic, and it's like, come on, that's BS. Yeah, like we actually don't edit much from our shows, so we just forced ourselves to kind of practice at getting better at the flow of conversation. But it's like, you know what? We all struggle with it in some ways. I remember watching an unedited video of Richard Branson one time, and he was stumbling around like a crazy person. Like it was just, it was just all over the place. But the edited version made him sound super polished. I'm like, it's just not him though in real life.
Like Joe Biden. No comment there. But I would say that I was on the Mike Dillard's podcast, and he has such attention to detail that he has everything edited. So when I was listening to that, I was like, oh my God, I sound so amazing. And then I started, I'm like, that's not me. Where's the where's the likes?
Yep.
And he had edited all that out. I was just super impressed. I've never had anyone, when I was a guest on someone else's show, right,
do that,
to edit everything like that. I was blown away. But yeah, that's the only podcast I've ever known where I was on where they actually they went through the whole thing and took out every
You can go down the rabbit hole. We had Guy Kawasaki on the podcast recently, and he has the Remarkable People podcast. So if you want to hear a polished podcast, go to that one. I mean, the guy, he said he spends 5 hours editing it himself, and then he has another team member edit for another 5 hours or something. I'm just like, this is wild. He sees him as like a work of art, like a book that he puts out into the world, though. So he wants it polished. There's a journey. Right. So he has a different intention. It just comes down to what you want to do with it, I guess, Yeah.
But now,
totally get it.
With Steal Our Winners, I bet you probably run into an issue that we run into as podcasters where it's just this constant like feed of awesome ideas and cool tactics and like, oh shit, I got to try that. I want to try that. I want to try that. Like, how do you not try every single thing that comes across your way?
Yeah, I want to. And that's another reason, right, why we want to do that outsourcing thing as a vehicle for us to do more of it. Right now, it's kind of, I give this advice sometimes to beginners or people just starting out, because I've been guilty of this in the past, and I guess I'm guilty of it now too. You get so excited about an idea, and it's a good idea. So when you share it with other people, it's like, oh, that's a great idea. And you get like a psychological payoff without ever having to do the idea, right? Like, you can just share it and everyone's like, oh, that's really smart. And so like now it takes some of the pressure away from actually doing the thing.
Yep.
So, sometimes it's a good thing not to share your goals, like to actually keep them to yourself so that you're kind of forced to accomplish it so that you can then share it, because sharing it kind of dissipates some of the energy like inside to get it done. So I guess the way I'm dealing with it is every time I come across something really cool right now, like someone shares something really cool, like I just share it with some people so I can get that at least initial pressure off. Because it gets stored up and I'm like, and so like I'll call a few people and share a strategy.
Yeah. But I like that though. I mean, with the bigger goals, if you have a mission or something you really want to do, like keep that bottled up a little bit. Maybe share it with the right people for feedback. But yeah, it takes away the momentum or the fire inside of you because it almost like becomes reality when you talk about it.
Like I want people to, not consciously, but I know unconsciously, I have this desire like to display intelligence and stuff like that, right? And so if you can get the payoff without doing the work, then of course you're going to do, right? Like if I make an extra 10 grand this month, my life is not going to change in any way, right? But if I execute a cool idea, that will change. That like that's cooler to me than making the 10 grand. So if I could just share a cool idea and get what I would have gotten from executing a good idea, like then there's no reason to execute the idea. And yeah, so that doesn't work out well though if you're building your business. So yeah,
not at all. Well, I mean, on that point, I know, and I don't know if we've recorded this. I know we've chatted about it. I think both in person and also just on calls. But I mean, you digest so much information. You speed read like a crazy person, but you actually retain it, and you have a whole system that happens after you digest information. Could you share some of that? I mean, I know you've.
Yeah, sure. It's called it. So the way I used to do it was I would read a book, highlight it. And then sometimes I might read the book twice. One time where it's really being read to me while I'm working out. And then for that, I would use an iPad app called Quick Reader, Quick Reader. And sorry. Quick Reader is the speed reading program. The one that would read to me, but also like pace on the screen was Voice Stream, like DRAM.
I use that all the time.
Right?
Yeah.
And so I'd go through that. I'd go through the book like in an hour and a half or 2 hours with Voice Stream. Then I would sit down and read it and highlight it. Then I would take those highlights and then I would speed read it in Quick Reader. And I could do that like, in 10 minutes or 5 minutes. And that's the way I did it for like a decade. And then I'd say a couple years ago, it just went through more stages where Quick Reader, highlight. But then instead of taking the highlights and just putting it into my speed reading program, I'd actually take my highlights and put them in Evernote and then do this process that I learned from Tiago Fort called progressive summarization. And the idea is that to know just by looking at a note how valuable that note is to you and the value of the note being based on like how much engagement with that note you've had prior. And so each time you touch a note, kind of like the idea of like office productivity, only touch things once. With this, it's like every time you touch it, do something with it so that you can kind of get a sense of how much you've interacted with it. And so the first time you go through, like this is Tiago's process of progressive summarization. The first time you go through a note, which now this note is already just what I've highlighted out of a book, right? So now it's just the highlights. Now when I read it, I'm bolding anything that I think is important. Now, I thought everything was important, like when I was reading it in the book, but now I'm trying to be more selective, right? So it's now what's important of just this stuff. And so I'm bolding that. That's my first pass. But then, and that's always the longest pass because I'm having to reread the whole note, right? But the next time I see that note, if I see the bunch of parts are bolded, I know that I've already gone through this. So now all I look at are the bold parts. And then I'm highlighting anything that I think is important in the bold parts only, right? And so now the next time I see the note, there's going to be a bunch of stuff that's bolded. There's going to be a few things that are highlighted. I know that the highlighted of the bold are the most important points. And that's what I will now interact with. Like the little boxes where I'm now putting my thoughts based on that, right? That's the process I go through. And what I've kind of realized also is that I need to start doing that, or I started doing that this month for Steal Our Winners, because someone else was like summarizing stuff. And I think that a few things get lost as far as things that I would think are important, but are not the number one thing of that interview. And I want to make sure that people are aware of those things so that it's nice to be pleasantly surprised when someone drops a strategy that you weren't even expecting, because that's not even on the topic of what the the segment is about. But it would be nice also for people when they're skimming it to know that that's there.
Yeah.
So it's about teaching my team how to do that as well, and then doing it with them for those things. But yeah, I mean, for me, my memory isn't that good. It's more about interacting with stuff enough so that it just becomes that familiar. But if it's read once, I could watch a movie this weekend with Kim, and if you ask me next week what movie I watched, I'd have no idea.
So there's hope for me after all. No, I'm just thinking because you've talked about, and I don't know if it's true or not, but you kind of have this ADHD brain, just the fact that someone like you don't think you have a great memory, but you have a process and it serves you well and it keeps you on point with what's actually important. I think is smart when it even goes back to your question of shiny object. Oh, great tactic. Well, let's dive deep a little bit, more in that tactic and see if it actually does fit in something I'm doing.
There's a difference between a strategy that is new versus that you should be using in your business versus just a shiny object, right? And I think a lot of people have difficulty kind of, when looking at something, determining whether it's one or the other. It's kind of critical, because the times when my business has grown the most, or the businesses that I've interacted with have grown the most, is oftentimes with a breakthrough, right? I have that $1 billion testimonial from Agora because I saw the VSL that John Benson had invented. I had nothing to do with it. But I saw it a week after he had invented it and put it out there. And I brought it to Agora, and Agora, worldwide, conversion rates went up between 300 and 400%.
Wow.
So we went from $250 million to over $1 billion that year. But nowadays, if we test a VSL versus a sales letter, there's little to no difference. And it was the same with automated webinars, for me. And when I gave it to Brunson and Phil, same, we were all crushing it. The registration rate was insane. The show up rate was insane, because we were the only people doing automated webinars at that time. And so my business back then, Strategic Profits, went from selling 10 back ends a month to selling 10 to 15 a day. I never was making so much money consistently as that. And so both of those times were, you could say, they were shiny, bright objects. They were, oh, here's another way of doing something you're already doing. But those two things were life-changing for me.
Yeah.
Right. And so it's how do you know if you're exploring a distraction versus the next huge, major step up for your business? And I think most people don't know how to distinguish the two. And I need to give some thought on how best. To me, it's more intuitive. But that's not the best answer. So I'm going to have to give some thought to that.
That's a future live stream. Yeah. You can make it one of those.
Well, speaking of shiny objects, I'd like to quickly hear your thoughts on Clubhouse. It's obviously kind of the hottest shiny object at the moment, especially among the digital marketing community. So what are your thoughts there?
I like Clubhouse, but I have a love-hate relationship with it. I also I have history online, and that history online also kind of interferes with my viewpoint on it. And what I mean by that is that I think I was the first in our market to get on Twitter, because back then, Gary Vaynerchuk and I used to hang out a lot. And so when he discovered Twitter, he told me to get on it. So we got on it close to the same time. And then Gary and I were going to the first South by Southwest together. And so I posted on my blog, follow us on Twitter. It's this new app, blah, 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 download it and stuff like that. After about 2 weeks, I got kind of bored of Twitter and just went back to doing whatever it is I do. And Gary didn't. And then Gary got into the algorithm, and everybody who's joining Twitter is being told, you should follow Gary Vaynerchuk. And, next thing I check, I've got 10,000 followers or 20,000 followers, and he's got 10 million or something like that. And I'm oh, wow, I guess I should have stayed on Twitter a little bit more. I think I have 6,000 followers or so on Clubhouse. But I was talking to John Lee, and this is months ago, and he already had 70,000 followers then. He probably has well over 100,000 now. And I was like, how did you get 70,000 followers? He's like, I got 3,000 followers today. And I'm like, how did you get 3,000 followers today? He's like, I'm in the algorithm. I'm like, oh, son of a bitch. Like I should like, like once again, it's happening. So there's that. It's been great for me to get on there because a lot of people recognize me. So they put me up as a speaker. And then I get to meet a lot of people who I don't know, but they know of me and I'd like to know them. Yeah. Right. So that's kind of cool. What I don't like about it is how in some rooms, I guess it really depends on the moderator, but there's like a one-upmanship.
Oh, like share your best tip. Oh no, I got to. Yeah, I got you.
Yeah. And it's really frustrating for me. Like if I share something that I think is like pure gold, because I know it's made me millions and it's made a lot of my clients millions. And then someone comes behind me, like with something that I invented like 10 years ago that Todd Brown like taught someone else. And then that person taught that person. And now it's totally bastardized, won't work like the way they're explaining it. But I know because it was my idea originally. and sometimes like if you're in a bad room, like people like the way it was described, like sounds sexy, like I'm going to tell you this, like, I didn't set up my idea as being the best idea. And now like we're going to another person and the person's like, I'm only going to give you this idea because if I keep giving you ideas, like everyone's going to get too wealthy in this room. And I'm, giving like all this tease to the idea. And I'm just sitting there and I'm like, yeah, I don't know if I want to be talking to an audience that can't tell the difference between the idea I just gave and that idea. Because that idea for some of them are getting them all riled up, even though it's not going to work. I know it because I've tried that. Like that was the wrong idea when I first came up with the right idea. So that part is a little bothersome. But what I would say is that it is the easiest place right now to get a following. And so for someone like, so you don't have to be like me where like, people recognize your name possibly. But I would say that anyone can get on and start a room and they're going to get more people in that room than they would if they turned on a live stream on Facebook or YouTube or any place else. So from that standpoint, it is a really like for people who are trying to get more of a following and grow their business, it's a really good place to be. I've spoken to some trainers like, personal trainers like in the UK who have like filled up their book of business like just on Clubhouse and so cool. And so there's a lot that can be done there. I wanted to do a challenge actually around Clubhouse, and it's just a question of whether I can find the right person to do it with me, because I don't feel capable on two levels. One, I don't know all the inside strategies for someone who doesn't have any following to get a following on Clubhouse fast. And two, someone who's really good at hand holding, and like some mother bear kind of person. But I'd love to do a Clubhouse challenge where it's like, get your first 500 followers in 5 days.
Well,
right?
we
something like that.
Yeah. I mean, a couple names, Gary Henderson, he's big on Clubhouse and we had him on the podcast here. He is amazing. Deb Cole, I think you know her.
I know Deb well.
She's writing a book on it. Actually, it's already out. That is. Gary's writing a book as well. So it's those two are probably. Yeah.
I was in this. Actually, I'd love an intro to Gary because I've never really spoken to him. Yeah. I was in a room the other day where I just thought the moderator was awesome. I don't know her, but I saw her. I then later that day was in a thing for Kim Walsh Phillips, and she was on. Her name is Samantha Brown, and she was running this room where it was like, give a tip or strategy on like something from your morning routine that would be valuable for everyone to listen to. And there's like 1,000 people in the room, and each speaker would go, and then people in the audience would have to raise their hands if they liked the strategy or not. Yeah. And if they didn't get more than 70 hands up, the speaker was kicked off, kicked out of the speaking thing.
Yeah.
And so the person would give the strategy and then, okay, like put up your hand if you think that was valuable and this person should stay on the speaker panel. And
dang,
I thought that was really cool because then it made it much more like, okay, it's not just a bunch of speakers and we're cool and we're going to one up each other or whatever. This was now more the audience was in total control of who were And I dug that.
That's
like,
smart.
and it added the pressure to the people like me on the speaker panel. Like, crap, I don't want to be kicked off. That's kind of embarrassing.
For sure, yeah.
Right? Like, so now I got to step up my game. Like, I got to actually listen. I can't just have it on in the background. So, I thought that was really cool. So I want to do a Steal Our Winners room. I want to have a room, but I want to get a moderator that can be really good, and kind of, because the moderator seems to be so important. And that's an opportunity. I mean, that's an opportunity, for people who are thinking about starting a podcast. Another thing that might be a good idea for them to do is to be a moderator.
100%.
Because moderators, it's like this woman, Samantha Brown. I don't know her at all. I know that in the stages of evolution, as far as entrepreneurial growth, I'd like to think I'm probably leaps and bounds ahead of her. I don't know anything about her, so maybe she is, but that's my assumption. But when it comes to Clubhouse, she's leaps and bounds ahead of me.
Sure.
Right. And so this is someone who probably, I'm just totally guessing. So let's remove her out of the equation and just call her, moderator A. But moderator A might have a business where her list is 2,000 people, right? She sells a $39 ebook, and that's her whole business. But all of a sudden now she has 70,000 followers in Clubhouse because she's a good moderator. And now people like me are seeking her out.
Yep.
So there's a lot of deals that she could do, right? And I think there's a lot of opportunity for that because, most people are not going to spend a ridiculous amount of time in there, but it's an easy way to actually aggregate some clout, I would say, in a pretty short amount of time.
That's exactly what Gary did, actually, because he said on our podcast, he's like, I didn't have a following before this. I was always the behind the scenes guy of big brands and, big names that we all know. But at the same time, just because he was moderating, now he's in the driver's seat. He's getting deal flow and these connections just from showing up and being the point person of that room. I don't think there's any better approach right now.
And I don't know anything else that the only other way that could happen for you, right, is if you do a podcast and you happen to get some big guests right out of the gate.
Right. And then you get a referral
in some way, shape, or form, right? Joe Rogan or Richard Branson or someone with a huge following shows up on your podcast. You could kind of get there that way. But other than that, it's going to be a long, slow drag. It might be faster with podcasts than anything else, except for maybe Clubhouse, right? Because right now there's just this moment of opportunity where it's still going to grow, right? If there's 10 million people in Clubhouse right now, it'll probably grow to 100 million. So that over time, right? So anyone who's there and being active is going to grow with that platform.
Yeah.
Have you spoken to anyone that has done that yet? Where they've taken, where they're hyping their podcast into Clubhouse?
Yes, I've actually been on a podcast interview. Actually, it was Matt McWilliams did it. Matt McWilliams had a podcast episode.
Todd Herman too, right?
Yeah, Todd Herman. It was me, Matt McWilliams, Todd Herman, Molly Mahoney, and
Kim Walsh Phillips.
Kim Walsh Phillips, yeah. So she was the one person in the room that I didn't really know that well prior to it. But yeah, Matt McWilliams has been doing podcasts right through Clubhouse, piping them into Clubhouse and also recording them on Zoom at the same time. So I've seen that.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's really, really cool, especially if there's a moderator in the, if there was some way that you could where the moderator was pulling questions from the crowd in the Clubhouse room and then somehow getting it to you. When I used to do a lot of live streams back in my office, we had it all built out, right? And there were two pipelines into the teleprompter. So one person could be telling me questions from the audience, that would just show up on the teleprompter. So I could just be looking straight ahead talking. And then a question that only I would see would be right there. And then underneath that, from another person would be sales and be giving me messages keep talking about X. Every time you're talking about X, it seems like we have a bump in sales, right? And so I'm getting all this other information at me. But as far as the camera, I'm just talking to the camera. So it'd be kind of cool if you're doing a podcast and in your ear, someone saying the people in Clubhouse want to know this about the guest, right? And so now you're making it real time kind of, right? So yeah, that would be kind of cool.
This goes back to, it reminds me of your live stream with Mars over there and his team, because I know that's what he kind of does during those live streams. And I mean, it's so damn effective, especially if you're on the spot or, live in the hot seat for so long. You're just like, got to fill the time with value,
Yeah. So, and it makes it so much easier when you have a lot of questions. I mean, I could talk forever if you keep feeding me questions, but like if I have no questions, I run out of stuff to say after like 10 minutes.
Hey, man, another model for the Clubhouse could be just a simple Q&A with your Steeler winners folks, from the month prior, or, maybe every week it's a Q&A with a handful of folks to just
that would be cool.
Yeah.
I'd also just like to have a room, right? Like where anytime like any contributor Steal Our Winners wants to get on, like, or, specific times every month or something where, all contributors are invited to be on, could be kind of cool.
Do a little close
as a way of like, also, once again, like being out there publicly and sharing good stuff. But at the same time, like if we really have it dialed in, then our contributors would know they could just show up to that Clubhouse room and get a lot more followers on Clubhouse because we have that room and we're doing stuff all the time, right? Just another benefit,
win-win-win thing. Yeah.
Yeah.
Man, well, anything else burning that you want to get off your chest here before we wrap it up? We're on a roll, man.
Yeah, I think we covered a lot of ground in this podcast.
I think we did. I don't even know how we're going to title this thing or present it. That's the struggle.
Well, let me just share one last thing, right?
Please.
Like, I am in the process, just started though, rewriting the Mr. X book for Jay.
Really?
And that's my favorite, one of my favorite marketing books of all time. Jay's been asking me to do it for years. And I've kind of just been,
thick.
Finally, we had a heart-to-heart conversation about it, and he's like, what is it going to take? And I'm like, okay. I'm like thinking like, what would be hard to say no to? I'm like, okay, Jay, we're close enough that I can just say this. And if you don't want to do this, totally get it. But if you want to do this, then I will write it. Like, no problem. Right. And he's like, what's that? I'm like, okay, if you're willing to write a new forward for it and say that of anyone that you've ever worked with, taught, etc., you wanted me to rewrite it because you see me as like your heir apparent. Right. Like, because at some point, Jay, you won't be here. And I'd like people to know how close we were and how you see me as like the person who takes your stuff and lives on with it. And if you're willing to write that and you have no problem with me using that anywhere, then I would rewrite the book. And he's like, I have no problem with that. So I was like, cool, done. And so in the process of that, I'm working with this other guy who's helping me, Kayvon. And in the book, there's a lot of talk about lifetime value. Right? Because it's an important, obviously, metric for marketers. But I had this long conversation with Kayvon about how online lifetime value is incredibly important. But what's more important for most entrepreneurs is cart value. Because that's really going to determine, very few people are like Agora, where it's like, okay, the lifetime value of this person is $700. So we can spend $300 to make this $50 sale, go 250 negative, like forever. And, so for most people, lifetime value is kind of irrelevant because unless you have stacks of cash, it's irrelevant, right? Like what's really relevant is cart value, because if your cart value is more than your acquisition cost, you can sell all day long. And if it's less than acquisition cost, if you sell all day long, you could go out of business. And so cart value to me is really important. And so I was talking to Kayvon about how, like, it's not as simple as we're just updating this book, because there are concepts, while important, they are now less so because of who we're talking to, entrepreneurial market, stuff like that. So I always am on the lookout. So that was just a setup about cart value, really, and that I'm always on the lookout for anything that will increase cart value, because it is really the thing that will determine your growth rate at the end of the day. And so I came across something really interesting recently. I saw Frank Kern do it. So I don't think he invented it. I'm pretty sure actually he did not. But I'll give him credit because that's where I saw it first. Where he had this offer where it was like his 5 books for $1. On the very next page, right, it's a $1 trial to his newsletter for $97 a month, $1 for the first month. Next page is like, okay, you took the trial but do you want to just upgrade right now? I will make it $67 a month instead of $97, and you'll save $30 every month by paying for it right now. And you still could cancel that at any time. And so I thought that was interesting. I've seen that before, so that's nothing new. But then on the very next page, he was then offering mass control for $97, right? Because like doesn't market it anymore, doesn't offer it anymore. Below that, though, was the interesting part. So video of Frank, right? Big like box underneath, get the entire mass control for $97. Then below that, like a little blue button that said add. Right? Like, if you wanted that.
Yep.
But then below that, there were 3 more boxes, each with like a paragraph of text. And it was like, Frank gave this special presentation to the copywriters of this company, never been sold before, add it to, get it now, $60, right? And it's just another add button. And then below that, like, at the private mass control event, Frank revealed his number one strategy for blah, 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 $60. So there were 3 $60 offers below the mass control offer of 97 on this upsell page. And then on the very next page, there was a $297 upsell, right? And then another 3 $70 ad buttons.
So every upsell has multiple add-ons on the same page.
So every upsell had 3 bump offers on it.
Got it.
And I was like, oh my God. And I did a little bit of research, found out like who's doing that and how effective it's been. And the news I got back, I haven't done a full interview on it yet, but the news I got back is that it significantly increases cart value. And so that is something that just to pass along to you guys and share. It's something I'm excited about. I can't wait to try it because it makes total sense. And bump offers, I buy a lot of stuff online, and a lot of times I find it very hard to not click on that bump offer because a lot of times there are good marketers who kind of figure out what it is that almost everyone's going to take. So
I think that's brilliant, man. It's cartwheel, and I don't want to. I just want to throw a mention of your mystery box. I remember you had that as one of your upgrades on the Steal Our Winners, and I thought it was brilliant. Hopefully, you can bring out one of those again because I think that worked out pretty well.
How about 3 more mysteries that we put in the box, right?
You could, yeah. Yeah, I mean, the whole cart value, I think it's a good distinction, though, because lifetime value does feel out of touch for a lot of marketers, especially if you're, small team, lean and mean. You're not going to have deep pockets, so cart value would be more the metric. How about the Mr. X book? I mean, I'm sure that's an undertaking for a while because I know that is a thick book.
Yeah, that's why I needed help. I'm not doing it alone because it would be a full-time job. And, what's made it a little bit more complicated is that it's a book that already has a conversation going on between 2 people.
Yep. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So now I'm a third person, hey guys, hey dude. It's like they just had this little conversation about lifetime value. Now I have to interject myself and be like, guys, lifetime value is not where it's at these days. And then I have to answer, what do you mean, Rich? And it's a little bit weird. So we have to kind of alter the whole thing a little bit.
Right. That's going to be good, man. Well, thanks for the copy of the original when we went to your house right around the time.
You'll get the new one when it's done. Eventually. Hopefully it will not. Hopefully I'll be a guest on this podcast again before that.
I think you will, man. Well, let's wrap it up, man. We've already taken way more of your time. I appreciate it, man. What's the best way? Strategicprofits.com is your main site. Is that the best way for people to get into Steal Our Winners these days?
Yeah, strategicprofits.com. The other thing is probably to either go to my YouTube channel and subscribe, or go to our Facebook group, which is free, which is also Strategic Profits. If they join the Facebook group, which I said is free, then they'll get a lot of updates as far as when I do my live streams and everything else, because that all goes there.
Yeah. No, and that group.
And there's a bunch of my paid stuff that we put in there free. So another benefit.
I saw you release something today or yesterday. I think it was some old paid report of yours and you put it in there. So yeah, that's the Your Business Blueprint, where I walk people through how do you go from an idea to building a business that you get free of completely. Awesome. So strategicprofits.com will get you there. Rich, always a pleasure, man. Can't wait to do it again. Thank you.
Thanks for having me. Thanks for teaching me everything that I know about podcasting in general. And thanks for agreeing to help me get my final podcast off the ground idea. And thanks for being patient and not saying screw Rich Schefren when I've wasted your time talking about podcasts that never happened, but this one's going to happen.
Hint, he has not wasted a minute of our time. You've always given us value. Appreciate it, man.
Appreciate it. See ya.
Bye, guys.
Rich Schefren is my homeboy.
Is he?
I don't know.
I think so.
Do you think he would say that? If I was like, hey, are you my homeboy? Do you think he'd be like, yeah, sure.
Maybe like, I don't know. Let me think about it. Got to be methodical with my answer here.
Yeah. He's
Yes
going
or no?
to go look at my Facebook account and see if I'm worthy.
Facebook account, that would do it?
Probably not, because I don't use Facebook very often.
He would say you're unworthy because he's way more active.
That's definitely true.
Rich. It's always a good time chatting with Rich. I mean, he's just a wealth of knowledge.
Mhm.
And we had no clue what we would chat about in this episode, in full honesty. We were just like, you know what?
He was a last minute ad, actually.
He was.
And I feel like that's really sort of kind of telling of where we're kind of at now with our business a little bit, in the sense that, guys like Rich Schefren, who like we respect insanely, and he was one of the first internet marketer types that we ever even followed in the very, very, very beginning.
Definitely.
And now we're at a point with someone like Rich where we could call him up and say, hey, we have an open slot. You want to come back on the podcast? And
it's always a fun time.
24 hours notice, he was like, I'm going to rearrange some stuff. I want to be on your podcast again.
Yeah,
like, holy shit, how cool is that?
Yeah, I got to give him big love on that, because he did move around some stuff on his schedule to make this happen and did not disappoint. And I'm pretty sure you got, I mean, I don't even know. I'm looking at my notes and I don't know why I am, because I don't think I wrote a single thing down that I'm going to talk about here, because it's, it was just really cool. I think what I love the most, actually, is him breaking down his Steal Our Winners model.
Mm-hmm.
And because it's very similar to our model, in that he is a curator of content, of the best content. He has an amazing network as well.
Mm-hmm.
And Steal Our Winners, which we're in there, we've contributed a handful of times, and we're about to do it again.
Mm-hmm.
And we've been at the launch event last year in Florida that we talked about as well.
We'll be at the next one, apparently.
Yeah, whenever that is. I mean, it's a really cool model to think of yourself as a curator, and then create a membership around it that pays you either monthly or annual or whatever.
Yeah.
And then
Who actually follows that model, though?
who?
Yeah. That was a joke, because we're launching Pod Hacker, and it's the same model.
Well, that's one too. Yeah. E.g., the Evergreen Profits membership. That.
Yeah.
Steal Our Winners. That. Ryan Lee. We had him on the show with Freedom.
Yep.
With a Y. That.
Mm-hmm.
So pricing models might be different, but I think the curation model is just so damn cool.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what we're doing as podcasters, obviously, as well, bringing guests on and sharing knowledge.
Yeah.
So the fact that, and I love the way that Rich thinks, and I'm sure we've taken so much from this, probably without even thinking about it, but he's like, I'm lazy.
Yeah.
He kept saying that. I'm like, you're not fucking lazy.
Yeah.
But maybe you are. I don't know. But you want to leverage the time you're spending with those folks and extend that content in other ways. And it might be different ways, segments of that content. Maybe you do some multiple batch record, and then use that in other ways. Maybe it's a YouTube video, live stream, and also paid content or something.
Yeah. I like how you went, haha, batch record, because we're actually in the process of batch recording stuff right now. But people listening to this right now probably don't get the reference, because the last time we referenced it was a completely different episode.
This is the problem with batch recording. Stuff gets mixed up. Yeah, that was from the John Lee Dumas episode.
Yeah, we start going, we were just talking to this person, but from the listener perspective, that was like 2 weeks ago.
Yeah, it was ages ago. Oh man. But yeah, Rich, I mean, it's just so, I mean, it speaks volumes when his mentor and good friend Jay Abraham, who we've had both of them on the podcast at the same time, which was super cool. So if you haven't listened to that, go check it out. It was totally different topics and stuff. But the fact that he's now going to help Jay write the next Mr. X book, the new version. And the Mr. X book, if you don't know about it, I mean, that thing, we do have a copy of it. It is very difficult to find.
If you're looking for it.
There it is.
Down bottom right.
Yeah. It is a Bible of marketing, basically. Like, it is insane how in-depth that book is, but it's in hot demand. And he's basically reworking that and updating it seems like. So I'm excited. It's the first I've heard of that.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that's exciting. I also wasn't anticipating him getting into as much detail about his dealing with Agora either, which I thought was a really fascinating kind of behind the scenes thing to hear from him. You know, because when we went out to Florida at the beginning of 2020, it was actually the second to last thing that we did before COVID locked everything down, because we went to PodFest like a week later or something.
Yeah, that was crazy.
But with Rich's event, when we flew out there and we spoke on the thing and we were in the mastermind, it was all an Agora thing. Agora was really the ones putting everything on. And recently they parted ways. Rich is no longer underneath the Agora umbrella. And I didn't think we were actually going to talk about that on the show, but he brought it up, and I thought it was just a really interesting behind the scenes to hear. I also thought it was interesting to hear him behind the scenes talk about like how he's kind of uncomfortable at times doing live streams, doing podcast interviews. Like, you know, everybody looks up at Rich as like, he's the guru to the gurus, right? That's sort of his moniker. That's what people know him as. Yeah. And even the guru to the gurus still kind of gets uncomfortable when it comes time to jumping on Clubhouse or doing a live stream or, you know, getting on a podcast. It's just really humanizing and interesting to hear that from some of these people that we've really looked up to over the years.
Yeah. And, you know, him and I have actually had similar chats separately because, you know, we've, you know, throughout this course of the last year or so, I mean, he mentioned at the end of the podcast that, you know, he's been wasting our time. Totally not true. Because it's, I mean, there's always a nugget of wisdom or like 10 that I pull from those conversations. And yeah, those are like legit things that go through his mind, but also go through everyone's mind.
Yeah.
And yeah, I guess I'll go back to this whole John Lee Dumas episode that we talked about. You know, like this, my brain bled over into here.
Yeah. The one that came out back on March 23rd.
Yeah, that one. Okay, cool. So it's been released already. But it's like, you know, you got to do the reps, you know, and that's John Lee Dumas. He said straight up, he was, well, yeah, I mean, he just wasn't great back then. And I mean, Rich is doing these live streams that are freaking awesome, I think. I mean, so I definitely recommend you go checking out his Facebook group, which is free. And it's, I think it's just, if you look up strategic profits, or actually just go to strategicprofits.com. That's right. It has like all the options right there on the homepage. Go join that group because he's doing the live streams every week. I think they're every Thursday at the time of this recording. And he's just, I mean, he's always covering one core topic, but he goes for something like 2 hours, he said. Like you're getting access to his brain and his thinking around that specific topic for that long. And I know I've sat down through many of those. And they're all recorded too, so you can go back and check them out if you wish. But go do that at a minimum. But go follow what he's doing. Steeler Winners is absolutely amazing as well.
Oh yeah, no, Steeler Winners is really cool. I always pull like some cool tips from there every single month. But like one of the things about his live stream that I thought was really cool is he essentially has a commercial for his offer for the first 2 minutes every time he fires up the live stream. Like he probably realizes it takes a few minutes before people start piling into the room. I mean, it's on Facebook or YouTube, but for people to actually start seeing the stream. So that first couple minutes, he's not sort of wasting his time talking about what he's going to talk about. He's spending that first couple minutes like, here's the commercial for my offer. All right, now that a few people have sort of rolled in, let's get into it. And I thought that was a really cool approach.
Yeah. Oh, and also his thinking around Clubhouse. That was good too. Being a moderator as being like good practice and also probably the best way to get connected and all that. I mean, like, way to grow a following. So many good things. All right, we got to cut it off here.
We don't need to recap everything we talked about.
My brain's like, it was so good.
Yeah.
Get the action guides. The action guides are probably going to be all over the place, but hopefully Sue kind of organized them a little better because we're all over the place. The action guide is free for 2 weeks of this episode going live. So go get it at flowchartgroup.com.
That's the place.
And that is the place at flowchartgroup.com. And that's a Facebook group. Make sure to enter your email, though, on the questions that pop up when you go there, and you'll get the notes. If you don't, then you won't get the notes. Pretty simple. So, flowchartgroup.com, and also we have our wonderful sponsor, not sponsor, Podhacker.
Yeah.
That is our thing.
We have our wonderful sponsor, Podhacker. We just happen to be the sponsor and the sponsoree. Sponsored. Sponsoree.
I'm just going to let you work that one out yourself.
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, so Podhacker is our brand new course as of this month, all about pod
It's
hacking.
so much more than a course, man. Come on.
It is a community.
It is a lifestyle.
It is a lifestyle. Are you a pod hacker yet? Go to podhacker.com and find out.
Ooh, that would be one way to find out. Yeah, I know. Check out Pod Hacker. This is literally us opening the curtain to everything we do, not only on podcasting, but also in the business side of things. So one of the most common things that we see an issue is, how do you make money with a podcast?
Mm-hmm.
What the heck do you do at this time that you're sitting around behind a mic and feel like you're not really talking to anyone? Or maybe you have someone on Zoom and you're like, cool, that was a fun conversation. What do I do now? Well, Pod Hacker explains that.
Yep.
So we have a full journey, walks you through. We actually have like 3 phases: build, engage, amplify, and monetize.
Beam.
The beam.
The beam.
We had to come up with an acronym. Come on, a readable acronym. But yeah, I mean, that covers you everything through
It's better than our original acronym, which was TITS, remember?
Yeah, I don't know who came up with that one.
I do. It wasn't me.
I don't think it was me either.
It wasn't either of us in the room. I'll just put it this way.
We'll leave it at that. Looking at you, team.
Yes.
But
JK. Also, that was the initials of the
That's
person
funny,
who
JK.
suggested it. JK.
Just gonna keep saying JK until he realizes who he is.
He knows.
I know he knows. It was a great acronym. But so everything all the way from launching the show, if you don't have one launched, but if you have one, it's optimized now as you go through the build phase. Engage. I mean, you got to get your listeners engaging with you in somehow. So we talked about how we do that. Then amplify is the other phase where we're talking all about the strategies to growth hack and get more listeners of the avatar that you actually want, not just everyone. And then of course monetize is the last one. So that's where you're going to get multiple revenue strategies. I mean, we have all of our affiliate stuff in there, our membership and our newsletter strategy, and then also everything. What's the last the other one? I'm blank. Oh, sponsorships. Yeah,
and I mean, there's other stuff in there too. Doug Sandler has a training in there on monetizing your guests. We talk a little bit about merch and actually selling merch off the back of your podcast.
Lisa Beyer hooked it up with a fat case study of how she launched her podcast with 50 episodes after learning this whole method here and kind of chatting with us. And Lisa's just so cool. So check out her stuff. But yeah, her case study is actually on the Pod Hacker page. You can go watch it. And it's literally a ton of content. So if you just want to learn some stuff from her, even, go check out podhacker.com.
Yep.
Podhacker.com.
Podhacker.com. And then finally, we have Easy Webinar, our favorite sponsor. Out of all the sponsors we have right now, they're my favorite.
I would agree with that one.
Yeah.
Yes.
So Easy Webinar, they do live webinars, hybrid webinars, automated webinars, all the webinars. Evergreen? They do all the webinars. Evergreen webinars. Yep, that'd be like automated, right?
I guess so. Yeah.
All of the webinars, they do them.
And there's ways to easily. They're I would say definitely the easiest. Yes. Yeah. And then also,
but easiest webinar is just a little bit longer of a domain, so Easy Webinar is good.
I would say that's pretty good. Typically, webinars are pretty difficult, and it's not the webinar itself; it's the stuff you're doing afterwards or during, even. All that tech nonsense that you really don't want to be dealing. They handle it.
They do,
and they give you cool dashboards to understand what the heck you're doing with stats and whatnot. So, go figure it out. If you're doing some webinars, you need that in your arsenal. Go get it at easywebinar.com/hustle, and you will get a big discount.
Big discount
at easywebinar.com/hustle.
Go there.
Thank you so much for listening.
And share this episode around. I know you know somebody that needs to hear this, so share that with that person. Otherwise, it is not cool of you, so be cool. Thanks, everybody, for listening to this episode of the Hustle and Flowchart podcast. Before taking the time to listen, we want to give you something a little bit special. Every single episode that we do, we actually have somebody on our team take notes. We basically have a Cliff's Notes version of every episode where you can go and find all of the tips and tactics that they laid out, all of the resources that they laid out, all the good stuff from this episode. We actually have a nice, simple notes version that you can find on our website. So go to evergreenprofits.com, find this episode that you just listened to, and give us your email address, and we'll send you the notes. Thanks for listening.
Go get it.
Wiki.